Hey everyone, thanks for joining us. You're going to have a great time in the next few minutes hearing from really good strategies from some CEOs and entrepreneurs in Arkansas on the Shrimp Tank, where we teach you how to go from a shrimp to a shark in the business world. Hey everybody, welcome to the post-show wrap-up of the Arkansas Shrimp Tank. I'm your host, Rich Jensen, along with my co-host, David Sims, and our special guest today, Chris Wright of Citadel Systems. Good name, right? It's really good information you'll find if you listen to the whole podcast, because we're talking about things like the dark web and cybersecurity and all sorts of fun things like that. Chris actually has background in the military and working with government contracts, and so he really knows what he's talking about. And we talk about wanting to learn from the best. That's what the Shrimp Tank's all about, learning from people's failures and successes. Normally, the podcast is primarily around how can you as an entrepreneur learn and do this and that, but this was so fascinating. We think every small business owner needs to understand what Chris does and probably use your services as well.
That's right. Well, you know, and of course, he's an entrepreneur. He just started his business 3 years ago. Right. He worked with a huge company here in Little Rock, FIS, and has a really deep knowledge and experience base in cybersecurity, and that's what the focus of the podcast is all about. And so I really encourage you to listen to the whole show. There's a lot of good stuff on there. Rich mentioned probably going to have him back on. Maybe he'll become one of the Shrimp Tank sponsors. You know, we'll see. You know, as his business blows up. But
he's actually going to hack in and become a sponsor without us knowing it.
That's right. Wait a minute. You know, Chris, one of the things you talked about on the podcast was the service you guys provide, vulnerability and penetration testing, or vulnerability scanning and penetration testing. And we talked about the dark web, and I asked you about how do you keep from going to the dark side, and you had a really great answer about that. Share with our viewers your answer about that.
So we talked a little bit about vulnerability scanning, penetration testing, about vulnerability scanning being a little bit on the easier side, the less intrusive side of things, and more automated, mechanical. The penetration testing side of things is a lot more fun for people like me. We get to go in, and this is where we're really hacking, not for the dark side, for the good side. So we do have, the white hat, black hat hacker concepts as well, just like in Star Wars. But we do that in order to, put any kind of computer system through its paces. But that is one of the most enjoyable parts of what I do, is getting in there and trying to break things and then come back and saying, here's how you fix it.
Talk about the dark web too, how you actually go in there. And
I have been pwned.
Do you actually go into the dark web? You said, yes, I do.
But only for good. Only for good. So
you have to take a shower after you do that?
Yeah. I wash my brain out. No, there's a lot of resources out there that are put together by other people like me in the security community that are just for the good of everyone. And the one we talked about was haveibeenpwned.com. It's run by a gentleman named Troy Hunt from Australia, and it really gives you, the user, access to the database of breaches that are out there. So you can see, has my email address or has my account been in a breach recently? One of the things that I do is I'll work with some of the key people in my client businesses and go to equivalent but a little bit more in-depth site on the dark web that allows me to look up, have they been in breaches and what was the actual password.
Wow.
So we can work with them on an education standpoint to say, you've used this password, this was in a breach. You may have changed it for that website, but have you changed it for the other websites where you use that same username and password combination?
Wow. So you actually do that for the client?
Yes. Wow. Yeah.
And you talked about Citadel System uses kind of like a 4-part process as you come and start working, in particular with a small business. Share with our viewers
Sure.
what that process is.
We start out by assessing. We want to determine where your risks are, what the gaps and shortfalls in security or compliance is. Next, we want to move and secure those. So we work in technical, we work in process, policy, people relationships, so vendors, clients, partners, employees. We also want to work in your business processes. We also want to look at your physical security of your building. So we're not just an IT firm. Next, we want to manage that risk over the long term. So we'll take those secure projects that we're working on, and we'll spread those out over a period of time that's not going to break the bank, and it's not going to bring your business to a grinding halt. And then we want to manage the security over the long term. So continually monitoring the security landscape, how your business is changing, and just what the attacks and the threats that are out there at the time are. And then finally, we want to train your employees, because in small businesses, these are really your biggest line of defense against these attacks, because a lot of the attacks are going to be phishing or social engineering or something like that. So we want to empower your employees with the latest attack, the latest threats, the latest attack methods, and allow them to help defeat the attackers in your network.
It's good stuff. Another thing we asked you about is the probability of a small business getting hacked. You shared some really interesting stats on that. Share with our viewers about that.
Kind of shocking.
Shocking stats. Kind of like, ooh.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, the small businesses are becoming a larger and larger attack surface, just because they're becoming more connected. The larger businesses are getting more secure, so the fact that there's a lot more people out there trying to steal a buck or two from anybody, they've having to turn their focus from large business to small business. So one of the latest stats I'd heard was that 43% of all cyber attacks are against small businesses. And that's, it should shock the small business owners to think, well, maybe I am a target. Because a lot of times they do come back and say, well, I'm too small, I don't really have anything of value. And, unfortunately, you have money, you have identities that can be stolen, you have computing power that can be stolen, so you are a target.
Yeah.
Well, the Shrimp Tank's all about small businesses and entrepreneurs, and I just want to encourage you, if you're a small business and you haven't had someone do a scan or someone take a look, give Chris a call. But Chris, tell them how to get a hold of you if they need that.
So feel free to email me, chris@citadelsystems.co, or visit our website, https://citadelsystems.co. You can see what we do, get an idea of who we are, and contact us through there.
And the thing I like about Chris is he's worked for the largest. He's worked for the military. He's worked with large companies, but he's doing this geared to small businesses. So a great resource.
Yep, great resource.
You can always hear the entire podcast at shrimptankpodcast.com/Arkansas. You can download us on iTunes, Google Play, iHeartRadio, or SoundCloud. Until next week, stay safe, and remember, to become a shark in the business world, we all start out as shrimp.